Number 5. The Giggle. Last night, a friend dragged me out to catch the opening act at a local dive bar. After a few drinks and some forgettable music, I reached into my pocket. No phone. I checked the table we'd been sitting at, the bar, even the sticky floors of the bathroom. Nothing. Figuring it was lost, I borrowed my friend's phone and called my number. 2 rings. Then someone picked up. A low, raspy giggle hissed through the speaker, and then silence. They hung up. I called again. No answer. Again. Still nothing. Eventually, I gave up and chalked it up as a lost cause. The night ended. I went home. That's when I saw it. My phone was sitting on my nightstand, exactly where I'd left it. Number 4. The bus driver. When I was a kid, I was always the last one the school bus picked up in the morning. Every day, same spot, same time. Nothing unusual. Until that morning. I stood alone at the stop when a yellow bus pulled up, completely empty. The driver, a man I'd never seen before, smiled at me too wide and said, "Hop on. We'll get the other kids after you." Something felt wrong. I asked, "Where's everyone?" He smiled again. "Don't worry about it. Just get on." His voice got firmer, more insistent, but he didn't yell, didn't move, just waited. I shook my head. No. He stared for a few seconds, then shrugged and drove off. A few minutes later, my usual bus, full of kids and familiar driver, pulled up. I got on like nothing had happened. That night, I casually mentioned the weird bus to my parents over dinner. I still remember the way their faces drained of color. They made a lot of phone calls after that. Number 3. The lady next door. A few years ago, I rented an apartment from a friend who had just finished renovating it. He couldn't find a buyer, so I offered to stay there for a while. That's when I met the woman next door. She looked about 45, but her face carried the weight of someone much older, like life had been gnawing at her for decades. Every night, she stayed up late, blasting Christian radio talk shows and holding loud, one-sided conversations with someone who was never there. At first, it was annoying, but soon, it was haunting. I went to her door one night and asked if she could keep the volume down. She opened it just enough for me to catch a glimpse inside. Her walls were covered in crosses, painted by hand, dozens of them, in every color. Words like Jesus and angels scrolled across the ceiling in frantic loops. The windows were blacked out. The air reeked of mildew and decay. Her carpet, old, yellow, and stained, was littered with cockroaches and dog feces. But no dog. I repeated my request. She stared at me for a second, then shut the door in my face. Moments later, the radio volume went up. The next night, my girlfriend stayed over. I woke up in the middle of the night and saw a shadow standing next to the bed, watching us. I assumed I was dreaming. Just one of those sleepy hallucinations you get when you're half awake. But then the shadow spoke. It was her. She was holding something in her hand. I just wanted to say. She whispered, "You should really lock your doors at night." Then she turned and walked out. She'd broken in. Who knows how long she'd been standing there. The next morning, I heard Strain chanting just outside my bedroom window. I looked out and saw her again, muttering to herself in tongues, swaying back and forth. She was holding a plastic bag. Inside was a dead dog, rotting. It was sweltering outside, and the smell of death hit me instantly. I panicked, ran upstairs to a neighbor's apartment, and asked what the hell was going on. The guy looked terrified. Said she'd broken into his apartment too, snuck in while he and his kids were watching TV. When he got up to grab a snack, he saw her standing behind the couch, holding a power drill. That's when I remembered what she was holding beside my bed. I called the police. They knew exactly who she was, a violent schizophrenic who'd gone off her meds. But they couldn't do anything unless she left her apartment. Legally, their hands were tied. So I waited. 2 days later, at 2 a.m., I heard her door creak open. She shuffled across the street to the 7-Eleven. I made the call. 3 patrol cars and a psychiatric van pulled up within minutes. They surrounded her, restrained her, and drove her away. Just like that, she was gone, like she never existed. But even now, I still dream about that night, about waking up and seeing her face in the dark, watching me sleep. Number 2, The Rock and the Rider. It was 11:45 p.m., and I was 15 minutes from finishing my night shift at a quiet office in the industrial district. Most buildings were locked up and dark. No traffic, no people, just silence. Then a massive crash shattered the calm. I got up and followed the sound. Someone had hurled a large rock through the front window. Glass everywhere. Weird, considering no one should have even been in the area. I called security, filed a report, and tried to shake off the nerves. I told myself it was probably some drunk or bored teenager. Still, when I left the building, I sprinted to my car, just in case. I jumped in and locked the doors, or thought I did. It wasn't until I was nearly home that I realized something. I hadn't unlocked the car when I got in. It had already been unlocked. My heart dropped. I pulled over, turned on the interior lights, and reached behind me to check the back seat. Nothing. No one. I tried to breathe, tried to calm down. 30 minutes later, I called a friend. He was out drinking and invited me to join. So I grabbed my bike and headed out. It was a warm, quiet night, and the moon cast a pale glow over the road. I was riding slowly, just soaking it all in, when I heard someone behind me. Another bike, tires crunching softly on gravel. I moved to the side to let them pass. The man who rode up beside me moved at a crawl. He turned and looked directly at me. His grin was wide. And wrong. Completely, horrifyingly wrong. There was something unhinged in his eyes. Something feral. I flinched as he passed. Watched him drift into darkness. That's when I noticed something that froze my blood. He was riding my mom's bike. I raced home, heart pounding. Sure enough, her bike was missing from the garage. And one of my car doors, the back left one, was open. I hadn't touched that door all night. The payphone. I worked the night shift at a campground, midnight to 8 a.m. Most nights were quiet. I'd bring my PS2 and game the hours away in an 8x8 shack surrounded by nothing but darkness. During my first week, the third shift guy who was quitting warned me about the payphone just a few feet from my shack. He said it rang every night at exactly 4:17 a.m., just once. No one ever answered. Probably some automated test call, he guessed. For months, I didn't pay much attention, especially in the summer when I kept the windows closed. I couldn't hear the phone ring at all. But come mid-August, I started leaving the windows open. Sure enough, every night at 4:17 a.m., the phone rang once. And it sounded wrong, like it was underwater, distant, haunted. One night, I finally got the nerve to answer. I set an alarm for 4:15 a.m. and sat by the phone until it rang. I picked up, and nothing. Dead silence. I said hello a few times, then hung up. I did this for a week. Same result. No one. I shrugged it off. Then, about a month later, early October, I decided to try again. Alarm at 4:15. Waited, answered the phone as it rang. This time, I heard breathing. A rough, rattling inhale, like someone sucking air through clenched teeth. Then a voice, deep, gravelly, as if scraping gravel in their throat, spoke my full name. First, middle, last. It was a voice I'd never heard before. My throat tightened, and I slammed the phone down. I shook some change into the payphone and dialed *69. The call had come from California. I live in Indiana,